Hey, podcast friends. Do you need to elevate your spirit, feel lighter, feel happier, feel looser, clear your trauma, clear your stuck past life energy, clear your karma? Do you want to forward your spiritual progress? Do you want to deepen your spiritual path? Do you want to deepen your connection to the divine source of the creation of all that is? Then maybe you should join us in Massachusetts, April 16th to the 19th. I'll be leading a 4-day Christ Light healing retreat. The Christ Light has nothing to do inherently with religion or Christianity. It's just a very powerful light that is known as the Christ Light that brings through, honestly, the most profound healing light I've yet experienced on earth. Jesus the Christ, was a human man around whom a religion was formed because the light he was bringing forth was so strong. So for 4 days, April 16th to the 19th, I'm gonna transmit Christ light right on at ya to heal all your stuff. So join us. Email me at klrubin, K as in kiss, L as in love, RUBIN @gmail.com to ask me any questions you have. 4 days of healing. You can join us online or in person. Christ Light Healing Retreat, April 16th to the 19th. klrubin @gmail.com for questions. Love and light, love and light, love and light, love and light.
Welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions you're asking. You find them inside you, reciting the records of cash. We laughing, we drafting the passion through vary. It's time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Consciousness is always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magicless, passionate. To top it off, the host, all the classiest. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers, what? All the answers.
Okay, I have a question. This is a content question.
Yeah.
Do we include this last 5 minutes in our edit? Is it of value to other human beings?
I go with no.
Okay. I just wanted to check in with y'all on that.
Yeah, in the sense that we can pick up on the topics. What I was saying is Des has to go, so we can keep his topic, though. His topic was so great. And if he had questions he wants to contribute now before he goes, he could give us those, and then you and I can go in my and your records and answer his questions, either through his records or through our own, so that the thread can continue even though he can't be here, is what I was saying.
Love
so
it.
Does
now
affect
that
what
makes
you were
sense.
saying.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Now that you've spelled all that out, I have nothing to add. Because any questions I've come up with are like super personal and things I would really want to be here and learn from and all that stuff. I was having trouble coming up with more vague worldly questions.
Cool. All right. I still have some questions on the thing you initially brought up. So I think I'm going to kind of dive into that a little because there's so much there in that question. I love that question.
Yeah.
And then whatever Cass and I come up with. All right. My phone is off.
Mine is also, or it is silenced and set away from me, so I cannot interact with it.
You could interact with it.
I mean, I could climb for it, reach for it.
What would be the reason to not all the way turn it off?
Because then I have to fucking turn it back on and it takes like several minutes and fucking frustrating. And so
turning your phone on is frustrating and takes several minutes.
It's so far away from me right now. It's not worth turning off.
Okay. I'm surprised. That's all. I turn mine on. It takes about 4 seconds.
Okay. It's not 5 minutes, but it is a few. It is, it's cycles and it does shit and whatever.
How is your life lately? Like, have the stress levels gone up? Are they the same? Like, what's going on?
The busy levels have gone way up because I've been working a sort of, I guess, a contract basically for the last month, and it just got renewed for the next month with the company that I do a lot of sort of training work with.
Do we want to promo them?
I can say it. Speechless. It's okay. They're awesome and they're amazing. And I've been spending the last month there's a big tech conference coming up. I won't name the company we're working with because I don't know if I have that clearance, but whatever. A big, huge tech company, one of the biggest. I think you know who I'm talking about. And we've been training all of their presenters for this huge upcoming online conference because they're not doing it in person this year. Like hundreds, kind of putting them through our sort of system. Anyway, and so I've been one of those trainers. And so I see 2 or 3 people a day, almost every day of the week. And that's been a lot.
Yeah.
That's a huge shift from 2 or 3 gigs a week with Feet First that I also work with, you know, kind of chill, kind of, hey, I'm having a weirdly chill pandemic time. Now suddenly I'm working a lot. I've got a Katie schedule like this, and then I got a client, and then I got to get another thing. I got to record a podcast, and I got to get a client.
Yeah, I get it.
Then I got to go on a walk with my new sweetie, and that's fun. Like that's not a gotta, that's a get to, but still.
How's all that going?
Good. It's lovely. I'm so full of that NRE thing, new relationship energy, that it's like I'm a little cracked out, like in a good way, but I notice it happening every once in a while. I'm like, okay.
How does that, tell me more about what does the cracked out feeling feel like?
Well, let me actually add to that. I just had an experience the other day that I think was all of the feelings coming through of, I just had a really great session with a client, and you know that feeling where you just come out and you go like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
God, I'm fucking good at that. I really like those people I was working with just now. I connected with some human beings. And then I also have this, and then I talked to Denise, or calling this person Denise.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
I think that was the name we came up with before. So not a Denise. And I had just like messaged with Denise about some things, and I was like, ah. And then I was talking to my housemate, and I was just sharing like so much energy. But I don't think it was the too much kind of panicky version. So the cracked out thing isn't really true. I think I should take that back, because I have had that energy where I'm like, hi, yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. It's just a little like, all right, take it down.
Okay.
But I just was aware that I was like 4 cups of coffee.
Okay.
Of like Phil's coffee, that like stuff that makes you feel so happy.
Oh God, that's how I am with Pete's coffee.
Yeah.
In fact, I was saying to Newman Manfredson, since I'm driving to, I guess I'll say this I'm driving to California today and tomorrow, because it takes a long ass time. And I cannot wait to go to Pete's Coffee. We don't have Pete's, and I was going like, I can't wait to get a Pete's espresso. He's like, what's Pete's? And I was like, because right. It's the one that hits me right in the old coffee G-spot.
Yeah.
But to your point.
The coffee G-spot. And everybody's G-spot's a little different. So let's not, some have a Pete's, some have a Phil's.
Each one is a snowflake.
Some like Starbucks. I'm not going to hate,
I hate.
Okay.
I don't hate the humans.
So there will be one of our sponsors. We're not going to get Starbucks sponsor.
I don't
possibly Phil's or Pete's.
The humans who like Starbucks. I get mad at Starbucks when it fails me. And I'll tell you this much. I love a Starbucks. There's certain things at Starbucks that I love. And then other things that I just it doesn't work for me. It doesn't hit the G-spot of coffee for me.
No, it's either sour or burned half the time for me, that taste. So I'm just like,
sour. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Tangy. I don't like tangy coffee, like when it's fruity, like hipster coffee that has that sort of tang or fruit or hints of citrus. I'm like, nope.
No.
I want it to taste like bread, chocolate, and earth.
Bread.
Yeah, bready is a good profile on coffee flavoring. That's why I like Phil's, because they spell out all their different blends. So like this one tastes like cinnamon, chocolate, and toast. This one tastes like the clove with a hint of, and it's not like they're flavoring their coffee. It's just that's the sort of, it's like wine. They profile their roast. Okay. And they tell you, and they're right.
That's fascinating. And speaking of hipster coffee, I can't remember who I was talking to recently about. I went into, here's the thing I'll openly hate on. I don't like, I don't want.
I think that should be today's episode. What are things we just don't like that other people do?
We'll call it openly hating on. I don't like when a hipster coffee shop is so goddamn hipster that they don't give you what you want in your goddamn coffee. I went to a coffee shop that was so hip in Sacramento. They said, oh, we don't do, what I always get is a double shot of espresso, a tiny bit of steamed almond milk, and a tiny bit of honey. It's like a cortado with honey.
With honey.
It's pretend. It's my own pretense. Sure. I'm very specific. I get you. I say to the people, I order the thing, could you do this? And it's kind of a cortado, but it's like this. And they go, oh, we don't do takeaway cups. So you have to drink it here. And I was like, okay, but I got to go. And they were like, well, we don't do that. And I was like, okay. Like I had to go. I didn't have time to drink it. Okay. That was number one. Finally, I was like, okay, I'll suck it up. I'll do your hipster thing. And I was like, that's cool. I'll have it here. That's fine. I'm like, be nice to the people. They're just doing their job. They give it to me.
Right.
And as they're giving it to me and charging my card, they go, oh, and we don't do sweetener. And I go, you mean you don't have any sweetener in this building? They go, oh, no. I go, so I ordered it with honey and you just charged me, but now you're telling me you don't have honey? They were like, yeah, we don't. So now I have this espresso in front of me that I don't want to drink.
They cost you $12. $12.
It was cloven hooved and cost me $12.
I couldn't decide if it was 7 or 12. I'm sorry. I couldn't commit.
So I had to sit there with the other hip people and sip my flavorless, hot, not what I wanted, in the wrong cup. Don't have time for this because I had paid cloven dollars and I was over it.
Oh God. I hate that story. Like I'm down with I'm okay with the no takeaway because we have way too much fucking waste. So like
that's true.
I know there are some cool takeaway some places that are really all about zero waste, and they literally just have like a fucking
dump cup.
But like a mug, they say like take this mug away and bring it back when you come back.
I love that
because we're not going to do a disposable.
They could say to me, bring your own thing, and I would 100% bring it. That's a really great idea. But to
would they not have put it in your cup, in your takeaway cup?
Now let's be fair. I don't know, but I want to believe they would have refused it. They would have been like, "That's that cup is not. That's cool made of
metal,
enough.
And we don't want our coffee to touch metal.
That cup is not cool enough for this establishment. You're not allowed to, imbibe."
I wonder if it's the place I'm thinking of. Is it sort of like like metal and glass and hanging baskets?
No, I kind of love that place. I think I know the one you mean.
Yeah.
K Street on K and 22nd-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not that place.
No.
You're right, because they actually make good coffee and I like it. So, and I put sweetener in it.
I've had the hipster coffee. I hate you people. I'm never coming here again. Experienced 2 times in Sacramento at 2 different places. And I'm going to actually reserve, I won't say their names so we don't like hate publicly on their specific companies, but man, 2 different hipsters, so hip 2 times in one town.
So hip that I'm angry. Like, yeah, that's problematic.
Come on, Sacramento. Come on. You're Sacramento, by the way.
Get over it.
You're not Amsterdam. This isn't Paris.
Sacramento, let's be honest, though, is actually a lot cooler than its name and reputation.
I 100% agree with you and love Sacramento a lot. But you don't get to like, because you're actually not just a cow town, Sacramento, you don't get to now be a douchebag.
Right. There's no call for that.
There's no call for that. We all love you. Those of us who know the truth, we were there at the concert before anybody knew your band was cool. We bought your Kicks shoes before Michael Jordan was wearing them or whatever the fuck. You don't get tone it down. We are already coming to your party. We will bring our own glow sticks.
I want you to just keep running with this metaphor. I'm enjoying it.
It's getting more and more elaborate. Do you know this?
And it's a little mixed. I like it. I'm going to a concert, but I'm wearing shoes. Mm-hmm. And it's a rave, but it's also a music concert. But it's also
and a basketball player is promoting it.
And it's an unknown band. So like I'm there, but it's also a rave with glow sticks, which is a little different.
I understand. I know. I'm very smart. I do very complicated, smart lady things. That's what it is. Part of, I wanted to say what I'm excited about coming to the Bay. Like when we were just talking about the coffee shops. So I'm driving to the Bay today and tomorrow. And I get like fluttery in my heart levels of excitement thinking about specifically, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm like this.
Pete's Coffee. Is this the
about
Pete's Coffee?
the specific Pete's Coffee in I'm not sure what the building is called, but in Emeryville, behind where the Guitar Center is.
Yeah, it's in the public market.
Yes, the public market. Ha!
Really? So that particular Pete's does it right?
The Pete's there, the anthropology store, just that area. I just love it. It's so industrial and cityful and cute, and it's right near the water. And yeah.
All right, I'm going to old school douche it up on my response to that, though, and that is the Emeryville Public Market used to be the coolest fucking place. It had like 70 food places, and they were so diverse and interesting and good and affordable and all these things. And it was funky. Some of them were funky and like, fried fish and the blah, blah, blah. Like, and then some of them were like, oh, cool. Like I can get this particular region of Ethiopian food or something. And it was so good. And then they did a whole, there's the nearby big plastic mall that got built. And then they kind of probably ran out of money. They closed the movie theater, which sucked. That was such a great movie theater. And then they just totally like redid that whole little mall. And all of those food places are gone. And now there's like 8 and they're like doubled prices and all a chain, but like a hip chain. So it's like, and it saddens me because I literally used to that would be a place to go for food. You just be like, I'm going to go there. And now I don't want to go there for food because it upsets me.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised that the small, like Ethiopian-y places went away. Only, I guess not, because they probably couldn't afford to be in there.
Yeah, they literally rebuilt the place. They like scooped it out and it's completely different visually. It's like different entrances, different locations. They basically just scrapped the building and started over.
Yeah. I guess
and Guitar Center's still there.
I know. How the hell is Guitar Center surviving this whole time? Like, how many people are actually buying goddamn guitars and picks and shit?
Well, maybe more during
COVID
pandemic because everybody's like, I'm going to get back to my music.
Maybe. I've always wondered about Guitar Center in general, just because, like, I guess though, like, if you think about how many Guitar Centers there are per capita, right? I've probably seen in my life 4 Guitar Centers ever in many different cities ever. So like there aren't a lot of them. And if you need a guitar, you're going there.
Or music or microphones or all that shit. Yeah.
Right.
I know there's one. So there's the one in Emeryville. There's one in Concord, which is not that far from Emeryville, near the old Willows Theater where I used to work, which is now defunct and got taken over by a UFC global fighting gym. Which this is the most like heart-wrenching image of something to take over a theater space.
I had no idea that's what took over that space.
Yeah, it's gross.
Interesting.
It's like an octagon ring in what used to be the lobby. It's bizarre.
I'm of 2 minds about all this modernization, gentrification, complexity thing. I'm really of 2 minds about it because there's the obvious. What I'm so sad about is the diversity going away. Like it used to be like the Ethiopian and the Italian and all the different things in there, and now it's like 6 microbreweries and 6 places. I made that up, but it's like that.
That's a pretty good version of what it is now.
Yeah. It's like all the food in there is like the food equivalent of a microbrewery, right?
Of a quote hip independent, very specifically like, oh, this is the thing.
Yeah, but the quote hip is the problem, isn't it? But then, okay, here's my conflict, and it's not justifiable or good argument or right. It's none of that. None of it makes any goodness happen in the world.
Okay.
I like the vibe of the design of those new Molly modernist, like I'm a sucker for the Mac store like aesthetic. I'm a sucker for the new stuff aesthetic. Are you okay?
I am sorry. Everything went to shit and I had to plug in my computer and then my microphone stand started to slip. And this is a really heavy mic and the things are starting to strip because the mic's so heavy.
Oh God. It back. Looks like a very, I'm going to say, tasty peen of a mic.
Well, yeah. And it is different. The other one was like a lollipop where it faced me like a lollipop
Right.
style. So like, but this one is like a peen that I'm about to go down on.
For real. That's the kind of peen that when you see it, you're like a lady and you're on a few dates with a friend, man, person. And then you're like, I wonder what I'll see in there.
And then you go, oh my God.
And then you peel back the casing
Wrapping.
of the banana. You peel back the outer layer of the banana, aka the zipper, and there's like a fun, girthy surprise.
I love the wide-ranging topics we are covering. Girthy Surprise is the name of this episode.
Is what that microphone legitimately makes me think of, like a happy making girthy penis, which brings me to an interesting point. I was talking to someone the other day about, so we're going to be sad and happy about the new mall in Emeryville, but mostly sad on your end, somewhat mixed on my end.
You like the aesthetic? I actually don't love the aesthetic. It's very obvious to me. And in like the Mac store aesthetic, I totally recognize it. I'm like, it's classy, but then it just like becomes glassy. I used to love that aesthetic.
I, sometimes I think like, gosh, I am so easily marketed to and manipulated that like this new shiny shit, I just like it. But when I think about like, I mean, everything in my life, I like clean, new, sleek things. Like I like this marble in this kitchen and my car is very clean and new and shiny. And I'm into new and shiny and I always have been. I've never been into like, yeah, we've had this bookshelf since my grandfather brought it over from, I hate all that shit. Like I hate old things, which I know is not.
That's a weird place to come from for someone who's like also drawing from the womb of the fucking planet and
I know.
And talking to our ancestors. Yeah,
I know. But one of the things about it is, and it's actually quite Aquarian of me, because the Aquarius sign, the energy of it is very the future, the modernism, the aliens, the other dimensions. Whereas like you could look at, I don't know, more of like a Capricorn energy would be like family and home and the past and our ancestors. And so my flavor of spirituality has a lot of futurism in it.
Got it.
So anyway, it does kind of match that whole thing, but it's not like you can't argue its goodness. It's just my preference, you know? Anyway, and you could easily argue the goodness of like grandpa's shelves. That's like clearly I'll tell you one thing. Every time I talk to Rami, I run into, this is Cassidy's technical partner. Who we had on the podcast, who's one of the best people I know. Rami, every time I interact with Rami, we recently chatted because they are going to be out of town right when I'm in New York.
Right.
And I'm staying in their place.
Oh, it worked out? Good.
Yes. Like exactly the days that they're gone, I'm there. And they were like, oh, I should have offered you my place. Here, you want my place? I was like, yeah.
And it's an awesome place. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen pictures.
Cool. I'm so grateful about that. What I was going to say is that every time I interact with Rami, I always have the feeling, I'm always like uber aware of the energetic exchange being somewhat similar to what we're describing here, where I feel like I'm coming from this slick, lifeless, soulless, modernist perspective. And Rami is like family and trees and fucking African dancing and community. And we don't need a lot of money because we have each other, like kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't have any family because people are terrible. I make money. Like I always feel so aware of that dynamic. And I admire Rami so much for everything I'm not. Like Rami is almost like everything I'm not. And it makes them so like admirable to me. I don't actually want to live that way.
Right.
But I admire that from over here. You know what I mean?
I 100% do. And I would love to hear at some point, we should hear Rami's take on that quantification of what they are perceived to represent for you, which I love. It's hilarious and true. And also I think they would be like, oh, no, here's this other totally different thing.
I'm sure.
This is hilarious.
It's just like a baseline, one-dimensional energy I'm aware of.
Right.
Like the last time we interacted, they were talking about like, oh, you could come here for the one night when I'm here, and then it would be hard because we couldn't really have COVID space, but I'm happy to share space with you. And I was like, neither of us are going to want that. You're going to want your own space. I'll have my own space. And then we ended up having a conversation about, they were like, I grew up kind of communally, like we lived together. And I was like, oh no, I grew up as an only child and we don't like each other. So privacy and space. And they were like, huh, okay. And
that is interesting. I love that.
And it's like, I want to be, if you're going to go with like the judgments of like the right loving way to be in the world, it's to be like everybody together in the house, loving each other, sharing, sipping from the same mug.
Yeah. And I have feelings about both of those ends of the spectrum that are mixed and complicated, because I think I am definitely such a combination of those two. Like I actually, even though I kind of, I don't like the Mac store. Like, of course I fucking love that shit. Also, like I used to totally fantasize about having like a glass wall of columns as one of the walls in my super modern house with, marble floors and sleek, cool, retro futuristic design or whatever.
Yeah.
And then also the other side of it I have always lived like with, old bookshelves and things I found on the street as my couch and, and liked it when it works. And so, yeah, that's all.
And you also have like a ton of roommates. And
right. Which is so weird. I'm a 50-something-year-old person that is like, I just live with roommates, man.
But what I was going to say about it.
And I pine for what you have all the time. And Rami also lives alone.
And that's what I was going to say about it is that I think you do really well with that many people around because of how much I hear you talking about like, and then we were in the kitchen and we all talked about a thing and it was so fun to be with my housemates. But then I hear you say also like, I could use an RV to live in by myself. So it's like, I feel like you do have, you are kind of both about it. Yeah. I don't know. I sometimes have the fantasy of like, it'd be nice if there were someone nearby who, if I felt like chatting with them, I could come to the living room and they'd be there. The problem with my version of that fantasy is like, then they go away for the rest of the time that I don't want them there.
Yeah. I'm glad I have a room with a comfy chair and a TV and, all that stuff.
Okay, no, wait. We were going to start talking about penises.
And Pete's, okay, this is the wide-ranging topic. We started talking about, you were excited about Pete's.
No, wait.
I was talking about being cracked out like coffee fills, and then you were like Pete's.
Yeah, but I'm thinking back now. I'm skipping ahead in time to the Pete when I looked at your microphone. And I was
looked at my penis, my microphone.
Tasty treat when you unzip it, and it's a girthy surprise. Oh, this is what I was going to say, is that I was talking to I'm not going to remember who right now, but someone this week about how, 8 thoughts at once. A fair amount of women say publicly, and I've heard this, this is what it was. I heard a podcast this past week with a psychologist who was a sex expert saying to a man they were coaching on the podcast. I think it was a man. Yeah. You have to understand, women don't care about your penis size. They don't care. And then the psychologist had a statistic. It was like 79 or 83, some high number percentage of women don't have orgasms vaginally anyway. So they don't care. Your penis isn't the main thing because you're going to get them off with your tongue or with your fingers or with a combination of your penis and a toy or whatever. And I was in my car going, I am the 12% that cares.
That requires girth.
It's not that I even require it. It's that I just really prefer it. I would rather have some girth and some length than not have that.
Right.
And I would much, much rather it.
Like now, you'll actually state it as a bit of a deal breaker.
Like it's on my profile. No,
like, do you think, let's walk down this alley.
Yeah.
Because I think probably the implication of this person trying to coach this person through whatever crisis they were having is that if they fall in love with you or are totally into you, that won't matter. As opposed to like we have a list of things we want. And if we can get 6 of those 10, we're good. And those things are going to include, but not preclude, like, if you're girthy and lengthy, that's going to help for you.
Yeah, right.
But like, do you think that you could be like before you ever touch this person and you were like smelling their pheromones and being near them and being like, oh, I want that person.
Uh-huh.
And you are vibing and the all the other juices were flowing. The energy was good. The brain and heart and soul. And then you were like, meep, it's all right. Would that dry you up? Or would you think you'd be like, no, I'm still totally in?
I have, let's put it this way. I have known human men for long periods of time who were less girthy and lengthy than other human men I've known. And it didn't send me away. But here's what I will, like, in other words, when I'm in love with someone, I'm not going to not because the peen isn't perfect now. But I will say this is a fun story that's sort of horrifying. And I'm going to try to be really vague about how I tell it so we can never implicate any real people. But if I'm on the fence about someone and I'm like, I don't know how I feel, I don't know about this. And it's not in the girthy zone, it's going to tip me more than likely over into, I don't know. I don't think I can.
I mean, fence is a place that you kind of never want to be. I feel like if you're on the fence, you're on the fence anyway.
Right. So then the peen can tip you right on over.
So all the peen's going to do is actually, if you are on the fence, but then the peen turns out like, woo, all that's going to do is delay the inevitable and like get you good time for a little while, but you're still not going to be into the person.
You may be right. You may be right. I'm not 100% sold on that idea.
But you're getting some good yum-yums in the meantime.
Maybe. You may be right. Because sometimes for me, though, and this is a human design concept. Okay.
I'm just going to laugh at the phrase. No, I'm not making fun of the human design. It's literally, we're talking about human design. Like, like I was designed this way. And this is how the design was executed. Oh,
yeah. Well, I love it. I love it. In human design, they talk about that a generator or a manifesting generator, you're a generator, I'm a manifesting generator, just side note. And generators are 60% of the population they'll only ever be 60% sure about anything.
Right.
And that like, we're never like 100% sure. And we're almost never 80% sure. 60% is like a solid amount of sure for a generator. And that's a hard thing to really like, that's like a difficult thing, I think, to accept about oneself, that like, it's okay to have a certain amount of ambivalence about stuff. And I think for me, with Pisces moon, which is such an ambivalent fucking energy. Oh my God. Pisces is the most mutable water sign there is. That and being a generator, I am always kind of on the fence about everything. Even when I'm super thrilled about it, I'm on the fence. So for me, the peen can really take you, it can take you one side or the other.
It's actually shifting the percentage.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. And so, okay, now that being said, like I said, if I'm super into it, I mean, I've stayed with people for years in a row who were not as girthy as maybe some other people I'd been with for years in a row. And I did not leave and it would be like something I'd noticed, but I was too in love to care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I know all of your past lovers who listen to this podcast are like, was that me? Is that me she's describing?
Oh God. I'm going with none of them are listening.
Good. I think we have to admit that like we have sort of rules that we live by publicly and believe in, like, let's not stigmatize that or say that, or change the value of a person based on their penis size or shame them for a particular way of looking. And we believe very deeply in those realities. And then we also have the internal version of like, I don't like that, or I like that, or I don't like that, or, like I have a type or I have a thing that turns me on and like.
Yeah. It's a difference between judgment and preferences.
Right.
If I say like, right. If I say like a man is not worthy of existing because I don't like his penis, that's insane. But if I say my preference is a little more girth and a little more length, that's just my preference.
Yeah.
And thankfully, since I've had the experience of like being in love with someone where it wasn't the hugest thing I've ever seen and sticking around, I can trust myself that like my values are in a decent place.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Like I'm not going to excommunicate you from my reality unless I'm on the fence. And then I'm like,
right.
I'm certain there are things about me that, I mean, you can't change the fact that people have their desires and their preferences. Like some people, my ass, I have way too much of a mom's ass for some people. This is a minivan driving soccer mom ass. That's what it is. It's got it's a little wide. It's got some heft. It's not flat, but not bubble. It's a mom ass. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time I said to a dude, he said something like, "Oh, your ass." Like he was all into it. And I go, wow, thank you. You like it? You don't think it's like kind of a mom ass? And he goes, "Oh yeah, I do think it's kind of a mom ass."
Exactly. I think one of the smartest things someone ever said, and I heard it secondhand, but it was someone I'm just going to say who it was. This woman, Jahanara, who was sort of the camp director of Camp One Rainbow for years and years. And they were in a discussion. Someone shared this with me later, but I spent many hours and huge parts of my life with this woman, and she's amazing and a phenomenal saint on the earth. That's the only reason I wanted to say her name, because everyone should just love her. I think they were just talking about, like, you know, what are you into in a person? Like, what are you attracted to? What are you attracted to? And I think the conversation was around like obesity or not and things like that. Mm-hmm. And she literally just said, let's be honest, we're attracted to who we're in love with. Like, I do have preferences that I can state on a vision board, right? I can be like, I like redheads who look Irish with freckles.
Yeah.
But then someone comes along
and you fall
that
in love.
Are none of those things. But I am attracted and in love with them in some way. And that then makes me go, yeah, now that's my type suddenly.
Okay.
Like that's it. I think that's it. My type is actually who I'm in love with for whatever reason.
All right. Now I love that idea. I have had that experience. I'm really eager. I wish I could use the specific example of who I'm thinking of, because there's a particular person in mind who, literally every attraction is attractive, says Desmond. Exactly. Everything I would want in a person, they were the opposite of. And I was deeply in love for years in a row. And sometimes if I let myself, I could still be. Like, you know, there's certain people that like aren't good for you and you have to break up for practical reasons between you, but you still love them and will forever.
Oh, 100%.
I'm actually a big believer that like love never dies. Like anyone I've ever been in love with, I'm still deeply love them.
That's what Andrew Lloyd Webber tried to say, but no one cared about that sequel. That's the name of the sequel to Phantom of the Opera.
Love Never Dies?
Yeah.
That's what it's called?
Yeah, I believe so. Somebody could check me on that, but that's what I think it is.
Okay,
anyway, go
great.
on.
So I've definitely experienced that 100%. Now I'm going to throw so many wrenches into this. I'm going to complexify. I'm going to make complicated this idea with the following kind of spiritual ideas. And I want to hear your thoughts about it. There are so many different reasons that people, quote unquote, fall in love with one another and like are super, super drawn to one another that don't actually always have to do with just the two humans loving each other as humans. There's like this other stuff going on in other realms.
Yeah.
That once you know about some of that stuff can get a little like, oh shit, let me look into that. And when you look into it and do some healing work and change some energies, you realize, ooh, that wasn't actually Katie falling in love with
Byron.
That was, let's say, for example, the darkness in Katie being drawn to the darkness in Byron. Or if we're going to get even more specific and out there, the jinn or the entities in you can actually be drawn to and have past lives with and have trauma with and be bonded to the jinn or the entities in someone else. And that's often what's happening when you get with someone where you're like, I know I shouldn't be with this person, but I cannot fucking stop. And I'm obsessed and I can't leave and I love them and I don't know why. And they're sick and toxic and I should go. And you don't go. It's often because whatever dark entities you're carrying in your heart, they have different ones. And those guys like each other and they're hanging out. Isn't that crazy?
No, I recognize. You know, I recognize. You've worked with me on this one. Like that. That's the, is it mine or someone else's taken to a really intense place?
I have had that so many times in my life that I've become a little bit of an expert on that particular frequency. Like when a client calls me and I open their records and I'm sitting with, and they start to talk about a partner they have. Oh, I'm thinking about my relationship. And then I get taken to like that person's energy. Immediately, I can tell you if it's the jinn, or you could say the entities or the demons or the demonic energy or the shaitan or the darkness, or whatever words you like. I could tell you if that's actually what's happening, because it's such a familiar frequency to me. And I could just pick it out of space with my body can just kind of perceive it. Anyway, it's such a bummer to have to tell people sometimes because they want to believe this like romantic narrative about how meant to be it is. And I'm like, well, let me reframe your meant to be narrative a tiny bit and say it's meant to be in the sense that you're meant to wake up to what's actually happening here so you can stop recreating the pattern where your darkness is choosing somebody else's darkness.
Yeah.
That's how it's meant to be. It's meant to teach you something that elevates you.
Yeah.
But not everybody's looking to be elevated.
No, we're looking to be satisfied. We're looking to have that be, we want the thing to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You had to do that with me. You were like, you said something about, I'm not going to co-sign on your self-harm or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was mad at you. I was like, how
sure.
dare you? I just need you to guide me into making this work. I need you to give me the guidance that makes this good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really respect you for being able to I think I give you a lot of credit. And I also have to say, I think you were in so much pain in that particular situation that you were going to hit bottom with it at some point anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing about it, is that something in us always knows already, this isn't right or good for me.
And that also is what gave rise to my most specific, perceptible, quote, otherworldly or extra
Spiritual,
natural, supernatural, whatever you want to call it, moment where I perceived a jinn departing my body. I perceived it. And it was as a result of that whole systematic situation.
God,
I told the story on another podcast. They've heard it. But yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I did recently.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. See, that's a perfect example of where something dark, everybody's like, darkness, I wish it didn't have to happen. And how do we rid the world of darkness and positive vibes only? And I'm like, nah, because that darkness was what taught you. You've had 2 or 3 perceptible extra worldly experiences, and
hardly.
And then one of the biggest ones came from a darkness thing you were dealing with.
Right. And I got to experience that, have it teach me something, and also, yeah.
Well, you also became free of it.
Right.
And weren't tormented anymore afterwards.
Right. And still was involved because our systems are complicated, and I still had all the remnants of the emotions and the brain and the neural pathways that had been built, and all those things were still there, but they can now. It's like it's like you get stabbed in the leg, and first thing they have to do is take the knife out.
That's right.
And they can't fix the wound with the knife still in.
That's right. The other thing is, the way I see it a lot for people is, and this is how I remember this for you. You tell me if this is off, but I remember you were obsessed and ruminating and perseverating and locked in your mind.
Yep.
And then you weren't anymore.
Right.
And you still had feelings and attachment and normal human connection with the person, but you didn't have that locked in, obsessive, can't stop thinking thing.
Right. Right.
That's the difference.
There wasn't a little thing with the reins around, and I had the bit in my mouth, and it was literally driving me. There's a little man in my brain with the little joystick going.
And that's the whole reason that sometimes, not always, but sometimes the only thing that'll change a situation is kind of a spiritual intervention, because the problem, or that's at the crux of the thing that the crux of the problem is of a spiritual orientation. And so no mental work you can do around it is going to unlock that mind fuck that was happening for you. But we did some energy shit, and you did some energy shit later in your room, and it just unlocked itself. And then you're left with the normal human mental and emotional stuff you have to do like a normal human does. But you're not overtaken or literally possessed. We can really be possessed. And it's funny that when people say, sometimes I'll get a new client and they'll call me and they'll be like, I know this sounds crazy and it's really fucked up, and I've never said this to anyone, but I think I might be possessed. And I'll be like, everyone I've talked to today is possessed. And don't worry, we can clear it. How much time do you have? Let's do it. You ready?
It's not The Exorcist. You're not going to puke pea soup all over.
But because possessed really just means there's some dark energy that's taken over your system that's like making your choices for you or making it harder for you to make your own choices. And then the good news is when you have a weirdo woo-woo lady in your life, you can just go poof and it goes bye-bye. Doesn't have to be pea soup all over the bedroom walls.
But then you do still have work to do.
Of course.
Then you have to repair the damage that was done by the, that it trashed your room while it was in there.
Yeah, for sure. And you still have to, something I often say to my students too is like, I can depossess you, but then you're still going to have to choose to break up with them.
Right. They're not going to leave because yeah, it's like we still have to apply our free will in the direction of what is in our highest good. We have to choose that individually. I can clear what's in your way and making that impossible, but then you have to actually show up and do it. And that's the part human beings tend not to like so much. Yeah.
I don't want to have to do more work once I did the work.
Yeah.
I understand. I'll be right back.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, I was saying, speaking of work, I have to pee.
Just a sec. Go pee.
So what do you think? Did I drop a deuce or just pee?
I mean, you could have done a quickie deuce. It's totally possible. It would have been a quickie one, but I don't know. What did you do, Katie?
I dropped a deuce.
Good for you. I know when you just gotta get rid of it.
Sometimes you just do. Also, like, I think it's so funny how, I wonder what the biological imperative in like Darwinian law is to men taking a long time to shit and women shitting quickly. Like, what's that about?
I don't know. It's just leisure. It's more about, I can stop. This is a place I can sit.
Interest. Really?
I mean, for me, honestly, I do cryptic crosswords when I'm in there. And I really like doing cryptic crosswords. It's a really good brain game. It's different than a regular crossword puzzle.
Huh.
But I would I'd consume my cryptic crossword book if it was anywhere else, because I would just be doing it all the time. So it's like a treat. I get to go in there and spend a few minutes trying to solve a couple of clues.
Huh.
So that might make me take longer while pooping. That's my current version of that.
I wonder, because I feel like every man I've ever known, been good friends with or dated, when they go to poop, they're like, well, I'll see you in a while. Like they're going off to war. Like they're heading to the sea on a voyage of many moons. So
I don't know if I had that gender assignment to that idea, because I feel like I have a lot of images of even like memes and jokes that are less about, that men take a long time and women don't. So that's a new thought to me. I don't know that I feel a lot of the women in my life have taken more time often than me. So,
well, the trope would be like the cultural meme trope is ladies always go to the bathroom together and they take forever because we're like talking and putting on makeup and we're crying about our boyfriend or whatever, which is true. But I would argue we're not shitting for 20 minutes.
Well, then we're talking about that tropey standardization. It's more the public and private version. Like men nobody shits publicly, like hardly anybody, unless you absolutely have to. Like when you're at the restaurant, you don't go, let me go take a dump. I'll see you back in 20 minutes. But you do?
100% do.
Oh, I only do if it is fucking vital.
You know why? I think
it's imperative.
But this brings me to my point, which is that it's so easy for me to shit that I go, yeah, I'm here. I'll shit.
It's just
done.
like peeing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's the other part is you sit down regardless.
Correct.
Right? No matter which version you're doing. So you might as well do one or the other. So maybe, okay, now I'm honing in on the biological imperative of why this is the thing. Generally, if we're peeing, it's the same as for you. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to do the thing. And whether it's peeing or pooping, I'm done. For us, it's like, that's how we are with peeing for the most part. Just go in and pee, because it doesn't take a whole. But if I'm going to go to the effort, pants down, and sitting and getting comfortable, well, shit, I'm going to be here a while then.
Okay. So, but doesn't that bring us back to the theory that like be here a while implies you're going to shit longer than we would?
It doesn't mean that I'm agreeing with your trope now. I'm backing your trope. I'm saying, if that is true, then this is my theory as to why.
Okay. Desmond has a thought.
Desmond has opinions on this one. He's been quiet.
This is just, I find myself in the middle of so many of your conversations and usually they're like deep spiritual like things. And I think it's so funny that I'm finally going to speak up because I am the center, the median of your guys' pooping conversation. So, I don't take a long time when I poop. I get in there, I bang it out. And I was probably 30 before I realized that not everyone just poops when they have to poop. Like, I didn't realize most guys are walking around holding it in until they get home.
I didn't realize that either till a long time late in life.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Way to
do it quick, and do it when you gotta do it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, and if we're at a baseball game, if we're in a car drive, if we go to a Taco Bell, if you gotta poop, you gotta poop. I don't care where I am. Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, that goes along with that sort of like, it's the imperative for you. So even if it's an awful place, you're like, I still got to do whatever I got to do. You got to pee. You're used to dealing with a variance of situations where you're like, well, regardless, I got to do this thing. Whereas we go in and we're like, okay, I am willing to pee in here, but I am not willing to poop in here because that's the situation.
Now, let me ask you, when you're not willing to poop, is it because you don't want your butt cheeks and thighs to touch?
And we don't know how to do the crouch. We don't know how to do the separation crouch.
You know how to do it.
No, I don't. I've never hover poop.
But that's not because you don't know how.
I mean, theoretically, I do. I think there are people who, quote, know how to ride a bike, but can't ride a bike.
Yeah, but you just bend. You just bend, Cassidy. You know how to bend your knees. You just bend and hover. You know how. You just don't want to, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I experientially don't know how because I literally have never hover pooped.
Okay. All right. You want to know what I've?
Yes.
You want to know what I've never done? I've never used a seat cover.
Oh, yeah. I just wipe the seat down heavy big time often before I use it.
Do you wipe it down, Des, or do you just go for it? Not really.
I'll check it. If it's wet, I'll wipe it.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
And that's another thing I didn't realize until I was 30, that everybody uses seat covers. So I'm like, well, I'm the only ass that's touched it this month, so I'm good.
Okay, here's my thing about seat covers. When you put that thin ass nothing sheet of paper that is basically tissue paper on top of urine and bacteria and fecal matter, what reality are you living in to think that that thing is protecting you in any fucking way, shape, or form? You are getting those goddamn cells on your legs anyway, because that shit is made of wind. There's nothing there.
Do we have a question for the record keepers on this subject? This is a far-ranging conversation. Literally, I just want to point out, this conversation is a direct result of me talking about having NRE and feeling like I drank a particular brand of coffee.
If you want to drag it mentally back to the very anal mental beginning.
I don't think it's anal. I think it's hysterical. I love it. I love this led to this, led to Girthy, and then Guitar Center, and then that led us to design, and then Girthy again, and then human design, and then I'm just enjoying the pathways that led us to talking about whether we shit.
I understand. Sometimes though, I feel like it's like if you tell a joke and then you have to explain the steps of the joke, you've now murdered the joke. So we're having a nice flow and things are organically happening. And then you're like, let's analytically state step by step how we got from one layer to the next. And I'm like, can we just live our lives?
I think I am, because it's the next step of the conversation.
Well, it is for you. And I appreciate that about you. I'm just saying I have a different perspective. Like
Right.
sometimes when people do this, they're like, it's so funny that we're here because before we were here. And I'm like, I know, I'm inside of it with you. I know, I was there. You don't have to tell me. I witnessed it. I peed in the middle of it. I pooped. I was there.
Actually, to be honest, that's what started this part of the conversation. So actually what I just said is fucking a lie.
Oh.
Your peeing and pooping reset the conversation. So I'm
So
wrong. Everything I just said is bullshit.
it's
Cut
not
that out. Would you
bullshit.
just edit that? 'Cause
No,
I feel like an
don't.
asshole.
No. I'm just highlighting like two different ways of being about with a thing. That's all I'm doing. There's no right wrong. So I do want to get in the records but so let's chat for a second about I want to touch base on the 7 million people versus where are all these souls and the three-dimensional folds in reality. I got more to ask the record keepers on Desmond's question from last week. And then I'm wondering, Cass, did you have anything lingering or anything that came up for you that you want to throw?
I mean, I feel like what got brought up was I liked that topic and I almost feel like it's a whole ass topic of it's that idea of like the Marianne Williamson don't hide your light out of fear for making other people feel bad. In fact, if you let your light shine, that brings other people along with you. She says it differently.
Yeah.
Much better. And that's kind of what they told me last week was like, look, when you're genuinely connected. And anyway, I just find that I love that the idea of like, how do we shine our lights without being showy or bragging or with how do we shine our lights with humility? And maybe is humility not a thing that we should be fucking around with, worrying about? I don't know.
I remember now the feeling in my body of what they were giving you, which I would frame it slightly differently, but I hear what you're saying now too. Here would be the slight way I would say it a little differently is they talked about, and I like this topic too, we should go into this too if we want to, is when you just organically, because I can remember how it felt in my body, they show me like, here's Cassidy organically bubbling over with joy.
Yeah.
Like you'll have just joy bubble out of you organically. You're like, I'm just happy. Like you described at the beginning of today when you said I was on 4 coffees, which does bring us back to the fills. You're right. That organic bubbling over is like infectious and like it's like a moth to the flame.
Yeah.
But when you're coming from proving something from a place inside that doesn't believe in itself,
yes,
that proving energy has a push vibe to it, and it's not an organic bubbling over. So when you say, how do we do it with humility? And is humility the point? I get it's not about humility in your case, in this particular instance. It's about the organic bubbling over of organic joy versus compensating or proving energy. So that the how would be to notice when you're in compensating or proving energy and to just stop. Oh, and then I remember they said, just stop talking. Remember they said, just stop talking. If you're talking and you notice I'm proving something or I'm trying to, what's the word? Arrogantly be cool to compensate for feeling less than, just stop talking. And I remember thinking like, that's funny. He's not going to love that.
No, I actually really love it. To be honest, I've been thinking, I had an anxiety dream last night, and maybe then we can go ahead. Maybe this is relevant, and this is the topic we can get into about a client I'm seeing today later after this recording session. And for some reason, something in the notes about this client made me go like, oh, they're going to hate what I have to offer. And I'm going to be in a weird I don't know why I made that judgment totally. I don't actually have a good read on it. But then I had a dream about having this session, and it was weird, and there was a lot of resistance, and I was having to prove the value of what I was here to share. And what I will say is that I've been having that dread throughout this process, and it almost never pans out that way, ever. Like maybe 1 out of 70, are like, really? And that's usually because I'm coming from that place of like, this is good. You should believe it. Instead of just like, fucking A, I got some shit. This is good. I can't wait to share it with you. And if I'm truly believing that, it lands or it doesn't. Also, if it doesn't land, I don't care. I feel good about it anyway.
100%. I mean, I really hear you on that. And I really relate to it. My language around it for how that goes inside of me is like, I'll be about to do some coachy thing. Like I just did a kind of like the kind of work you're doing for Speechless now. I work for ACT and Mark Raffel and I do these trainings and we'll do it from like 9 to 3:30.
Do you know Mark Raffel?
Have you met Mark Raffel?
I think I've met Mark Raffel.
Do you know Mark? Anyway, we'll do these trainings and it's like 6 hours or however many hours that is. And it's a long time. And every time we're going to do it, I always have this like, oh God, that's a long time to do improv games for fucking data analysts and engineers who don't think this way. And they're not going to like it and they're going to resist. All of that goes on. And the way I experience it is as a clamping down in the middle of my belly and my heart and back of my neck. So what I'll do is I'll just like consciously choose to soften internally around the neck, the heart, and the belly. And I'll just choose to drop all my preconceived, like I'll like detach from my ideas in my mind. And then I'm just back to peace. And then I'm like playing an improv game with some people. It's like it takes me back to the present moment to just declamp.
Yeah.
Because I'm very like physical, like everything for me is like a mental idea always has a physical component inside of me. So if I'll go body to brain because it works faster for me personally. And I like to name that for people sometimes because I think sometimes I find in teaching these concepts, a lot of times, if I say it physically, people go, oh, right. I feel tense in my heart. I could let go of that heart tension and then my mind is calm. Like it amazes me how frequently people are not paying attention to what's happening in their body.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that amazing how much people don't?
It's so funny. I literally had this exact conversation with someone last night when I was trying to explain what I did with the corporate folk. And I was talking to someone who works in like social justice movement and environmental work. So like sometimes I feel a little like I have to like justify the work I do with these uber corporate folk. And that's another proving energy. But when I can relax and just be like, why do you love it? Oh, here's why I love it.
Right.
And she said almost verbatim what you just said. She's like, wait, you have to tell them to take 3 deep breaths and that actually has an effect and they learn that because I'm like, yeah, no one gave them permission to do it. They're not actually disconnected from their souls or their selves. It's just there's this framework that says you can't acknowledge your feelings or your body in the context of this work that you do. And our whole thing is literally just giving people permission. Like, no, it's actually better if you share your feelings about this fucking product.
That's the whole thing.
And not try and prove. There you go. And then you're not trying to sell me something by proving to me that it's a good thing. You're actually saying, I wrote this line of code and I'm really proud of it.
And the thing is, if you're actually doing your job, like if your expertise is present, like if you know what you know, then there's nothing to prove because it's like when people call me and they want me to like talk them into doing energy healing. Why should I do it? And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't. And they go, what? And I go, do you want to? And they go, well, what is it? And I go, well, it's this, this, and that. Huh? Why does that work? It just does. I have nothing to fucking prove because it works and you're either going to try it and be open to it or you're not. To be fair, I actually don't get a lot of resistant people showing up anymore, but I did at the beginning. I certainly freaking did. But these days, it's just like people who want it show up and they have it and they receive it. But in these corporate contexts, like what we're talking about, where they're sort of like choosing these classes to go to because I think they have to like choose a certain number of them per something.
Right.
And then they're like, sure, the storytelling one, that sounds fun. So they don't really want to be there, but they kind of do. So you're in a way, you could argue like, you've got to sell it. You got to prove it. I just don't. I'm just like, here's an exercise. So what happened in your body? And then they go, oh my God, all these things happen. And it never has to be proving. But that anxiety that we were both just talking about the night before is always, I think, some part of the psyche saying, I'm going to have to prove.
Yeah. And I mean, I love having this conversation right now because I'm going to see the client that I have written this whole narrative about that I know nothing about. Why? And I feel bad for them because I've laid a narrative on them ahead of time that doesn't exist. But like, this is really helpful because then I'm like, oh, right. I don't give a shit. I'm just going to show up. Here's some things. You want them? Cool.
Totally.
All right. We should get in the records. You want to get in?
Yeah.
Should we just jump in? And then maybe I'll have a question that's specific around this topic when we get there.
Yeah. So just to, so just to hone in, we want to open probably your records and my records.
Do you want to ask if that is a good call?
Yeah, I mean, that reads right now.
Great. I love it.
Okay. Dum 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 dum. Please hold, please hold, please hold. Okay. This, and then we're closing this. All right. I'm wondering if, no. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. All right. So, and you'll let me know when we have maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes left or 5 minutes left?
We got about 40 minutes right now.
Great. Just, I mean, if you could give me a heads up, because
yeah, I'll give you a 10 just so you know, so you don't get too like, what?
Perfect. I love it. All right. So we'll close our eyes and we'll bring our attention to the center of our heads, right to the center of the head, rather than in the forehead or the top of the head. And as we bring our mental attention to the center of the head, we'll take a few deep breaths into the low belly. And we'll visualize as we breathe into the low belly, a ball of bright white light in the center of the chest. And let's take just a moment to imagine that softball-sized ball of bright white light in the center of the chest, in the heart chakra, we're going to see that thing expand now to the size of a basketball. And we're going to understand that this ball of bright white light is actually the consciousness of us, unencumbered by thoughts and feelings and fears and agitations and projections. It's just the consciousness of us that is pure and unencumbered. And we're going to see that basketball of small little points of white light making up the entire basketball-sized ball of light, expanding now to fill our entire bodies. So every single cell of our physical bodies now becomes touched by and animated with these little points of bright white light. Yeah. Including our spinal column and the back of the head and the ears and the tongue and the back of the neck, everywhere in the body, the fingertips and the palms, the belly and the genital area and the knees and the calves. It's all lit up with this bright white light. And we'll breathe into the low belly, continuing to connect there. And we'll feel into the bottoms of our feet. And we'll see at the bottom center of each foot a little foot chakra, like a little hurricane, spinning and getting bigger and bigger and expanding and opening until the entire surface area of the bottom of each foot is a nice open field of light, like an open window. And then we'll consciously allow ourselves to be aware or to play with the idea that having done this window opening at the bottom of each foot, the electromagnetic field of our body is now able to commune with the electromagnetic field of the earth more readily, more easily. And from the bottom of each foot, we're going to visualize 500 energetic roots extending down into the planet, many hundreds of miles down and down, left and right, and down and down. Like tree roots, our energy field sends 1,000 roots, 500 from each foot, gripping into the soil of the planet on the energetic level. And as those tree roots extend through our feet, we'll see our grounding cord extend from the base of the spine, 1.5 feet wide, shooting all the way to the center of the earth. And when that grounding cord locks into the center of the earth, we'll see a river of abundant divine light flowing up through that grounding cord from the earth itself into the root chakra, understanding that it's just an endlessly flowing river of light that the earth has to contribute. And we'll see that river of light abundantly flow forward into each hip socket, down through each quad, glute, hamstring, knee, calf, shin, ankle, and foot, pouring abundantly over into our roots that we established moments ago. Allowing ourselves to have the idea and the awareness that we have a nice tripod grounding structure now, rooting us into the here and now. From here, we'll say we do acknowledge the forces of light asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. Holy Spirit of God, protect me, please, from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know myself and Cassidy Jamal Brown in the light of the Akashic records. Help me to see myself and Cassidy Jamal Brown through the eyes of the lords of the records, and enable me, please, to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of myself and Cassidy Jamal Brown have for myself and Cassidy Jamal Brown. I'll go quiet for just a moment. Okay. And as we open into the Akashic records of Catherine, Lauren, Hardy Rubin, and Cassidy Jamal Brown, I'm just asking that we each be opened and cleared of anything that would stand in the way of our receiving what we're, the guidance and the wisdom and the healing we're capable of receiving today. Anything in the way of that for Cassidy or myself, we ask for it to be loosened, shaken apart, cleared open, uncreated, and destroyed. Amen. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah ladhim, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah ladhim, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah ladhim, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah ladhim. And okay, so let me just sit here for just a moment. Okay. I make a specific request. I'm asking that you open all of our 1 through 8 chakras, Cassidy and my own. Spin them as they're meant to spin and align them with one another within our individual bodies the way they're meant to be aligned. Have them function correctly. Yes. And I ask that you align each of us with our respective higher selves in this practice and in this alignment. As we open our first chakras and connect us to the earth more actively, each of us respectively. And you deepen each of us into our respective Akashic records and me into both of our records so I can perceive, know, be, and receive with everything about Cassidy and everything about myself that might be relevant in the conversation we'll have. Thank you. Okay. So, I think we were gonna, my impulse is to start with the extra people question. Are you okay with that, Cass? All right. So, Lords, Masters, and Teachers of the records of myself and or Cassidy's records, or I'm looking for a little more information, if there's any available, about Desmond's question last week, where he talked about there are more people on the planet than there ever were before. And if the idea is that the people who die, like let's say the world started with 1 million people, which of course it did not, and those 1 million people die and reincarnate, shouldn't there just be another 1 million people? But instead we have all these other people. Where are they coming from was kind of the question. And last week you shared some info. So for myself, something that's coming up is like, are we including the kids these people have? In other words, let's say we start with 1 million people and each person has 3 kids or 2 kids. Then shouldn't we already have more people than we had before, which answers the question,
where are they creating souls when they create babies?
Who?
I don't know. Like, right, because before people even die, you've increased the number of souls that need to be tapped to be brought into bodies.
Right. So like, in other words, okay, wait. So because I just realized that, okay, like I'm just talking now, Katie here, like if there's 1 million of us and we each have 2 kids, that's how many people? Let's say it's 3 million people.
4 million.
Okay, 4 million people. So it doesn't. So what was the question again? The question was,
where did the souls get? Are we creating new souls to fill the increasing population of bodies?
But that wasn't his question.
Yeah, it was.
It would. So say it again.
We have a bunch of souls.
Right.
And when we reincarnate, those souls, people die, their souls go back to the ether, and then they come back into a new body. Right.
Right.
And then, but that should be that sounds like there's a finite number of souls being cycled. But then the number of bodies being created to pull those souls into them is gazillions times more.
Well,
every year it's geometric. It gets larger and larger and larger constantly.
But each body that's born has a soul with it organically. Each body has a soul.
Right. But is it its own soul, or is it a soul that's been reincarnated?
Okay. I see the question now. Thank you. Okay. I tracked the logic. I couldn't find the logic again. Okay. Okay. So are they new souls? No. Okay. Now I'm getting the energy of the last time too. So we have a little bit of info. We have the awareness that some of the new souls, new meaning like there's new bodies and there's more bodies than there originally were, so they can't be reincarnated. So the newer ones are from other places, like dimensions and realities.
Yeah.
And then
there was the accordion folding of time, so that we're perceiving time differently. So there's simultaneity of souls in bodies.
And there was a third thing too. Do you remember the third thing?
Well, it was just all the different types of, there were the other entities of different places. So some of them are the lizards.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. So reptilians, light beings, other beings that are from other places that are not reptilian, that don't serve themselves, but serve the light. And then time folding. Okay. Yeah. And so I said to Cassidy, I'm now talking to the record keepers. I said to Cassidy and Desmond that I was really taken aback by the time folding idea. It sounds so sort of like sci-fi movie that I wonder if you could, record keepers, Lord's Master Teachers, help me, I don't know, illuminate more about that for me and let us know if there's other. So let me ask that one at a time. Are there other answers to the question? No. Okay. There's not other answers. It's just those 3 things, creating new. Okay. 1 second. Because now I have a new question too, and I'll come back to that in a second. I'll put a pin in it, which the new question is like, do new souls ever get created just poof? Like, do they ever just come into existence and not come from somewhere else? And I get an immediate yes on that. But inside of this time folding idea, I think what I'm wondering is, if you're saying to us that, let's say there's 5 people in the room I'm standing in right now. Some of those people are, I'm experiencing them as being here and now people in this room. But the truth, or I should say, and the truth is that they are actually, what is the truth? If I'm experiencing them as here, are they here? Yes. And is it dimensions folding over on each other? Yes. So both things are true? Yes. Okay. But why can I see them and interact with them if they're somewhere else? And they say, because both is happening, because they're here and they're there.
I love that
Cassidy, do you have anything
this
to
sounds
add?
so similar to like quantum physics also, like that something is both a wave and a particle, and you can both perceive it and not perceive it, and by perceiving it, you've changed it. Like,
oh, that's so good.
Desmond looks like he has a question on this topic, though.
Okay.
I don't have a question. I just had just thinking of like a slinky as time. And while if you run your finger down one side of that slinky, you're running down A, the same slinky, and B, 30 different rungs of the slinky. So that slinky is a single soul, but each rung is another trip through this universe at this time.
That's good. That's really good. I think that's really good. Thank you for that. I think where I'm stuck, Katie, here is like why can I see the extra bodies if they're in a different kind of dimensional experience of, okay, and then I just got a response to that. So, okay. So they're showing me inside of a healing session I had a while back with a client where she had a thing that kept being problematic, that it's like we had run every clearing that I could think of. And then I heard through my head, which is how I get communicated with a lot. Like I hear a sentence and the sentence I heard, or the idea I heard, was ask about ask about the parts of herself that are split off into other dimensions. And I went, okay. And then I said, okay, well, since you gave me the idea, I'll go ahead and ask you the thing you just told me to ask you, which is, what about the parts of her that are split off in other dimensions? All of a sudden, all this energy started to move. And to be more specific, what we were doing was a soul retrieval. So like when you have trauma, a lot of times what happens is parts of the self, if you're using therapy language, you might say like an aspect of self dissociated away. And if you're using other language, you might say the soul, part of the soul left the body, right? And so usually I can just say, okay, any parts of the soul that left the body, let's bring them back, or any parts of the psyche that dissociated away, let's reintegrate them. But it wasn't working until I said, okay, any parts of this person's essence that are trapped or stuck in other dimensions. And then they showed me, I am getting chills, by the way, all up and down my arms and down my back and on my shoulders. They showed me like, all right, you know what it looks like when you look in a mirror and there's a mirror behind you and then you can see a million mirror reflections of yourself in the mirror? Okay. They showed me these sheets of consciousness. Imagine that each dimension of consciousness was like a sheet, like a thin, straight up and down slice, like a wall, but like that's translucent, like a glass sheet. Okay. They showed me her face in the first sheet, her face in the second sheet, her face in the third. So I was seeing all these hers. It was like her, infinitely in these translucent sheets that were in other dimensions of time and space. So then, all I do as a healer oftentimes is go, okay, God, can you heal this? And then the light, I have the connection. So the light will go, sure, boom, 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 and do whatever it's doing. And I just have to hold the space. So I'm sitting there watching all of the sheets, like they were like, like I said, like glass sheets or ice sheets kind of collapse in on each other and come toward me. And then I realized, oh, right, I'm in her records. So all the sheets became one sheet and merged into her heart center. Inside my body, I'm experiencing this because I'm in her soul or her records. And so, boom, it all reintegrated. But that's how I experienced it. And so now they're pointing me to that healing session for me to understand this thing we're talking about. They're saying it's like that.
Does that mean that individual that Gary, who lives in in Indiana might have a splinter of my
Indiana?
soul. I don't know why Indiana. Gary, Indiana, I think is what just happened in my head. Sorry.
That's
what you said.
That's the joke. That's the joke I was making.
I didn't realize I had said that until I said it, till you said it, till I said it. But is it possible that the soul that is him is actually just a splinter of my soul?
Yes.
But then if I reintegrate, does he vanish?
Okay, good question.
If
he reintegrates,
pull all my
vanish
pieces back together, does he no longer have it?
Again, okay, let me hold on. There's a bunch. Let me see. So if Gary in Indiana if his full existence is simply an aspect of you and you reintegrate, he would stop existing. In other words, his body would die. But more often, the case is that more often than not, it is the case that Gary is embodying many souls at once. In other words, he's sharing, his physical body is inhabited with several dimensional fractal aspects of whoever. So there wouldn't just be, think of it as sheets. They keep showing me like thin, tall sheets that run through the body. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think part of the challenge is that we're trying to apply sort of Newtonian language, Newtonian physics language, finite Newtonian physics language to something that's more like quantum physics. Like it doesn't, the language doesn't actually serve, because you can't say, well, if X, then
work.
X equals 1.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
No, and we talked about that last time. And so that's exactly right. And they're showing me all these sheets moving through different bodies. I say sheets, remember, I'm thinking like a glass wall, a very, very thin glass wall would represent one dimensional element of you. Now, there's sort of this awareness here of it's not always problematic that a soul is reverberating in several dimensions at once. Sometimes it's because of a dissociative fracturing, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's part of the soul agreement made by the soul coming in at that time that they will concurrently cohabitate or multidimensionally habitate. So sometimes it's a problem and sometimes it's really not a problem. Also, sometimes the contract will complete itself midlife. So let's say Katie's walking around and 16 other fractals of her are existing in 16 other dimensions. And she completes her assignment, say, here in this reality, and suddenly wakes up to, oh, I'm fractured off in 16 dimensions. Could I bring those guys back? And she gets a yes, and they come back in. That's fine. In other words, if you're not aware of it and it's not causing problems, it's not a problem. But if it's causing problems and then you become aware of it, you have if you're spiritually connected and if you have access to consciousness, you can affect change. But only if it's necessary.
And this might be my languaging problem, but would then your reintegration, which is wonderful and it's good on your, like if you are reintegrating, have you then, and you're pulling parts of yourself back, does that change those other locations? Are those other locations of yourself that are located possibly in other human people as part of their fractaled dynamic wild soul? Have you then removed a piece of their soul by pulling it back to you?
Yes.
And does that change them? Are they now like So they'll be like going along, doing all right, maybe having problems. And maybe the part that you're reintegrating is actually maybe a problem for them. And then suddenly they're like, I feel better. Because Katie across the world did some reintegration work.
Think of it this way, they say. Think of it this way. It's like it changes it, but it doesn't, there's no problem with change.
Right.
From this perspective, there is no, humans are like, oh my God, it changed.
How dare you? I did not give you permission to take that part of my soul away.
Yeah. So it was never a part of that soul. It was your soul refracting in different times and spaces, being pulled back into the oneness of itself. So it was never your soul, but your experience, if you're in one of those other dimensions, will change if that refracted aspect of me is removed from you. Yes. Also, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Also, it depends. Okay. It depends on how aware each individual is that's carrying a refracted piece. Also, it depends on like how aware or how sensitive. Also, it depends. Sometimes a refracted piece of a soul is just hanging out in a dimension, not in another body. It might not be that you're in 16 bodies. It might be that you're like hanging out over here and hanging out over there, and you're just a sheet in consciousness, but you're not necessarily like, you might be in a bird or in the wind, or you might be in another dimension entirely where birds and wind are irrelevant. You might have that refracted aspect of you refracted into a holistically other type of space where none of these words even apply. So it's not always that you're in another body and you're messing with that body's life.
Gotcha.
But that does occur. Yeah.
Will you ask this question? And it's a question about whether we should pursue this line on another. This is reminding me of what I understand about psychosynthesis as a psychology practice, which is what my mom is sort of an expert in, right? And it is ask if there is relevance to the concepts of psychosynthesis, and would that be interesting to discuss further?
Okay. I keep asking you if you can hear me, because I'm losing every second word that you say.
Oh,
so I lost a lot
you are skitzing out a little bit. Your internet seems to be a little blocky. Okay, can you hear me now?
I'm going to repeat back what I think you heard. You don't have to say it all again. I think I heard you say, does this thing we're talking about connect it all to psychosynthesis, which your mom works with? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right. I mean, yes, is what I get. Now, can you help me, Katie? Can you help me understand what psychosynthesis is?
Well, this is where I was like, I want to talk about it, but I don't know enough to. So my question is actually, would that be interesting on a future episode to go deeper into with an expert in psychosynthesis?
Absolutely.
Which would be,
100%.
Again, someone we've had on the topic before, but we could talk about this specifically.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You get a big yes. All right. I'm going to put a pin in that then, because we don't need to pursue it now, because I'd be talking out my ass.
All right. All right.
And we have about 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. So here we are. That was really fun for me. I'd like to just articulate, like, I want to say a little more about what happens for me when I'm kind of getting these awarenesses. It's like my physical body. No, it's like my physical kinesthetic awareness, what I can perceive with my physical, the cells of me, the consciousness of me, is taken into these places where these things are, so that when I'm in the place, I can describe the place I'm in, right? So they take me into a place where the sheets are visible and perceptible. But the reason I'm articulating this is, as soon as we close the records, you'll probably get another text from me going, what the fuck about the sheets? Because when I'm not in that space that they take me into, that's like I'm literally in the space of that. That's the only reason I can describe it, is because I'm in there. So then when we close the records, my consciousness contracts back and it's not quite as big and wide and open and perceiving. Then I'm just back to having a brain and a bunch of my own, filters and human resistance and whatever. And then I go, what with the sheets? So anyway, I just wanted to articulate that because it's very cool for me to get to like, okay, now I'm in a world where there's sheets and dimensions.
Well, when you wake up from a dream and then try to explain to somebody the logic of that dream, you can't do it in the waking world, but it made all the sense. 100%, there was no problem with the logic when you were in the dream.
That's so true.
But I will say that when you are in the space, you are able to articulate it pretty well to us, I think. And it is a little trippy and a little challenging.
Yeah.
But I feel like, so, and then when you step out of the dream and you go like, wait, what? It is harder for you to even, like, I feel like I can tell you back better what you said than you can because.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. It's so interesting. So other questions that either of us have about anything really in our own lives? Is there anything you want to run through, Cass?
I mean, I feel like we don't have quite enough time to go deep dive right now. And that is fine because that shit is interesting. And I think we were in some stuff. But since my records are open, I just wonder if there's anything more that they want to say that would be of value around the topic of like authenticity, like sharing from authenticity and doing work from your authentic truth versus.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think it was said pretty clearly, but is there anything else?
Okay. So, okay. So faith and trust are built most of the time for humans, not always, but most of the time through leaps of faith where you act as if it may be true. And then you do that enough times and then you believe it. You're familiar with this, right?
I'm laughing. I have so many direct associations with what you're saying. It's making me giddy.
So what they're offering is like, it's like we would offer you this notion to play with. What if you were to, when you are functioning from proving or arrogance or compensation for a perceived lack in yourself, step one could be to do some healing work on the place where you believe there is lack. Or you could notice yourself in the present moment, acting from a compensatory space or a proving space. And you could practice parenting yourself in the moment and saying to yourself, I'm going to pretend or act as if this situation will work out, even if I'm not in control of it. And even if I appear as lowly as my perception of my lacking self is, I'm going to have faith, AKA practice this, AKA pretend it may work out, that I'm going to pretend that if I take my hands off the rein and prove nothing and compensate 0% and be silent, I'm going to quote unquote have faith that this will work out. After you pretend that 20 or 50 times, you will have the faith that living authentically with nothing to prove works. It works out. People like you. When you allow the effervescent joy of you to bubble forth the way you do here on this podcast, you meet ladies who are attracted to you and you like them.
It's a year long. Like I have invested an entire year in just that task. Just kidding.
Oh, very cool. So does that make sense so far?
100%.
Okay. Now, there's two other points we'd like to speak to. One is you have a bit of a tendency, and you're aware of this, and we would like to simply underline it, to not always be fully connected to yourself in your belly, in your center, such that you'll miss when you're proving or compensating or showing off. You'll miss it. And then other times you're super present and you're like, oh, I'm doing that thing. So we're just going to point to that and say, you know, part of this is what your culture talks a lot about right now about quote unquote mindfulness. We would frame it more like visceral presence in the body. So practice more regular, frequent, moment by moment, breathing into your third chakra, solar plexus, and below. Breathing into the low belly, breathing into the first chakra at the root, and just being with your heart and below. Always, always, and always. And this will give you greater access to your awareness moment by moment, so that you'll be aware of each time that you go to the exhausting and tiring and draining energy of proving and or compensating. And lastly, when, as we said before, we suggested just stop talking, there's something you can do inside of the not talking, inside of the body, which is, as Katie was describing earlier, unclamp. Find the place in your midline where you are clamping and wanting and desiring control, and unclamp viscerally without mentally needing to understand what's happening. Just unclamp, just let it go. The clamping. Does that make sense? And then when you've released the clamping and you're not talking, you'll find yourself back at your center and you're present in your body. And then you're functioning inherently, if that's where you are, you will be functioning from authentic communication. That's the formula for you.
Yeah. I recognize every piece of that and resonate with it. And it actually doesn't seem that hard.
Cool. They want me to reiterate, like, good if it's not hard. If it's ever hard, that's when it's time for some energy work. You can just bring that here and we'll just do it in here. Because that's certainly a healing that would benefit your listeners. They would receive it as well. Particularly since we're now assuming that many parts of you are refracted into other dimensions.
Yeah.
All right.
That's perfect time-wise if we want to find an ending.
I was going to ask a thing for myself, but can I just go quickly and ask one thing for me? Okay. So I just meant because of time. I know we all have to go, but I'll just do very quickly. So I'm wondering, Lord's Master Teacher, like, what is the spiritual purpose of this trip I'm about to make? Like, what am I actually doing this for? I know what I think it's for. And so this is what I get, and then I promise to try to keep it as brief as I can. You have been reclaiming lost, dissociated, frozen, armored, guarded, protected aspects of self that have been melting into your heart center through this work you're doing here where you live, with the people you're working with, and with the earth. The earth spirits are contributing radically and wildly more than you even know. Returning to California is a way to experience the place you feel still is home, from the new embodiment that you've become as a result of all the work you've done here. You are wishing and desiring to experience everything more fully. Part of your drive to heal is you wish to be where you are. And you are aware on the soul level that in California, there was a large part of you that was not with you. So many frozen, young, vulnerable parts that got frozen through your trauma are thawed now. And they wish to experience the beauty of everything that's been happening for the past 17 years for you in that beautiful part of the country. And so you're going to soak it in and to live it and to experience it fully. And yes, as you've been wondering, you do get to decide, do I want to come back here? Do I actually miss it? Do I like it? Do I prefer it? Is it in my highest good? As we know you very well will ask. So give yourself permission to receive into the core of you and into the newly melted, soft, mushy, squishy, vulnerable parts of you, the experience of the Bay Area that the other parts of you already love so much. And just enjoy, soak it in, drink it, allow the cells to soak in each moment. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. So much of your work has been just getting to where you could enjoy. And now is the time when you can, more and more each day. And so it is. That's very moving to me. Okay. We want to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion, the lords of the records for their point of view, and the Holy Spirit of light for all knowledge and healing. I ask that you return Cassidy Jamal Brown and Catherine Lauren Hardy Rubin to themselves now, and return them both of us to our complete human wholenesses. Return Cassidy's energy to himself. Return him to his complete human wholeness. Return me to myself. Return me to my wholeness. Divine portal and the Akashic records for Catherine Lauren Hardy Rubin and Cassidy Jamal Brown are now closed. Amen. Divine portal and the Akashic records for Cassidy Brown and Catherine Rubin are now closed. Amen. Divine portal and the Akashic records for Cassidy Jamal Brown and Catherine Lauren Hardy Rubin are now closed. Amen. 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 That was cool.
That was cool.
Thank you.
Fun episode today. I like talking about all the shit we talked about.
Me too.
Stuff.
I can't wait to see you guys in person.
What?
I know. I'm so excited.
See our eyes. Yes. Well, y'all do your work.
I hope you guys do your work.
What are you asking for? All of the answers? Say what? All of the answers? Yeah, all the answers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod, @allanswerspod. Thank you.
Some of it might make it into the outtakes at the end.
My God.
This might be good outtake stuff.
All right, you do have little outro jokes that you throw in there.
Yeah.
Love it.
That was a Sounds Awesome production.